Hey everybody, I have with me today an awesome admin on our team. This is Sean, and he's a musician, he's an artist, he's an observer, he's an adventurer. He's got some interesting stories to tell, and I'm really excited to have him here today because I really appreciate all the things that you bring to the group, and you're usually one of the calmer, more level-headed people that's able to kind of see straight to the heart of a situation and communicate what needs to be communicated in a really kind way. So I appreciate the compassion and patience that you bring because we need
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So if you could tell me maybe a little bit about yourself and then what your personal philosophy is in 20 words or less.
Yeah. I think you got it covered. I am 27. I'm a musician. I live in Florida. I'm just a human being, Personal philosophy in 20 words or less. Love is the highest pursuit that a living thing can undertake and is the pinnacle of experience. Something happened with your audio. I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Really weird. Sorry about that. Okay, tell us about your work, kind of how you feel about it, and then where you might see yourself in the future as far as work and career.
For work, I perform music and teach music. Teaching music is the day job, helps pay the bills because performing doesn't really just yet. I think it's the best. It's amazing. I love it. I never work a day in my life. It's very rewarding, and it's really exciting to watch people get excited about music because it brings back to me the times, when I first started to play, and I would just spend hours in music stores just obsessing and just taking everything in, not even, playing the instruments, but even just like seeing the textures on the instruments and taking in the smells and like all this stuff. So it's really great, and I make a lot of personal connections that end up being really good. I've made a lot of good friends that started as students. That's pretty amazing too. So it's the best. In the future, tentatively, the plan is hopefully to do less teaching and a little more like traveling and playing and stuff. I'm in a band right now that is a younger band, still gestating. But yeah, the plan is definitely to try to do some traveling and put it out there on a bigger scale. So we'll see what happens.
We can say we knew you when.
Maybe,
so,
we'll see.
What is the name of your band, can I ask? Or?
Silhouettes on Screen, and I have to say it really slowly because every time I say it, or several times, I've had people think that I'm saying Silhouette Sunscreen. It's not the name. Silhouettes on Screen.
That's an important distinction.
Yeah, and I play in another band called Remedy X, which I've been in for a longer period of time. Yeah. So.
Okay. That's pretty cool. Tell me about your relationship to food. Like, do you see a mind, body, spirit connection? How do you eat? What are your favorite foods? How does it impact you?
I eat just about everything. There's like very little food I don't like. It's actually hard for me to think of things I don't like. I don't like avocados.
What?
Yeah, I know. Crazy, right?
Who doesn't like avocados? What?
Yeah, and I can't eat any food that's minty.
Okay, I don't think you can even be in the spiritual community. I mean.
Yeah. I think those might be pretty much the only two. I really like to eat poultry, fish, Italian food I love a lot, and pastas and stuff like that. But I'm very open. I have a broad palate. I'm not picky at all. So sometimes because of that, I eat like crap once in a while, I guess. And I eat a lot of food because I have a high metabolism. You definitely can tell a difference when you are eating healthier. I think there definitely is like synergy between body, mind, spirit, as you talk about a lot and as people talk about a lot in the group. But yeah, I don't know. I pretty much eat whatever. And this is maybe not food related, but just in terms of consumption in general, one thing I do is I try to stay away from fluoride as much as I possibly can. I have a filter for fluoride-free water, and I use fluoride-free toothpaste and stuff like that.
Nice. Have you noticed a difference, like going on and off it at all, or have you ever like gone back on it, or just not yet?
I mean, I don't even know if I'm totally avoiding it because I don't know what food sources contain stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, in conjunction with other stuff, I noticed that I'm at the very least more clear-minded now. But stuff with the pineal gland is really fascinating to me. That's how I kind of got started on that. So.
Oh, nice. All right. So tell me, do you exercise? Are you active? Do you move? And how does that impact you?
Yeah, I do. Being a musician, being a drummer is a very kinetic instrument. It's very physically demanding and stuff, and especially the style of music that I play. It's a lot of hard hitting and fast moving and stuff. And I do like work out 2 or 3 days a week. It's a great stress reliever, first of all. I definitely notice it clears my mind and it makes me feel usually happier, more confident. It's probably related to dopamine levels or serotonin levels or whatever. But yeah, it's just kind of like an uplifting thing for me. I love to do it.
Okay, well, that's cool. Tell me about some of your favorite music and art and creative pursuits and interests.
Okay. Playing music is number one. Definitely, I live and breathe for that. I do write poetry sometimes and like short stories and stuff like that. I haven't really put any of that stuff out there publicly. A lot of that is kind of just like almost like journaling in a way.
Well, now that we know.
Yeah. Now I have to, right? Yeah, that's just kind of a cathartic thing for me. My favorite band to listen to is called The Used. Really beautiful stuff to me. But I also just like eating, I guess. There's not a lot of music that I can't listen to. Maybe I'm not a big country fan.
Oh, okay.
That's
So I heard music. I heard you like writing. Anything else that's creative oriented that would be an interest of yours or pursuit, or does that kind of cover it for the most part? But that's fine. That's a lot. I'm just curious.
Yeah, that does cover it. I don't have any visual artistic skills whatsoever. I can draw like stick figures, and that's about it. So,
okay, that's cool. But
yeah,
didn't you say you do cooking too, though? That's kind of creative.
Yeah, I cook badly. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm learning.
All right. Have you ever experienced racism or sexism? How has that impacted you? And then kind of in general on those two topics, what are your thoughts on those things?
My thoughts on those things are that they're pretty despicable and they usually trigger pretty emotional reactions inside of me. But obviously, if you kind of take a step back, you can see that it comes from fear, and people may not even realize what they're doing when they're doing it. I haven't had a lot of experience with it being directed at me, but I've definitely seen it directed towards people I care about. And yeah, you can see like it can break a person to be devalued just for who they are, for things they can't control. It's just totally unacceptable to me.
What do you think we can do about those things, which for some people is not a problem, but for some people it really is right now in the USA's?
Yeah, and that's a pretty massive question, and there are a lot of people who just react to it emotionally, which maybe doesn't solve the problem. I don't know. The best thing that I can think to do is just to, first of all, refuse to ever be that person, refuse to ever buy into those thought patterns, and to actively spread the opposite and just love and embrace people,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Give people a safe place.
Yeah, no. So do you like to read? And if so, what are like maybe your top 3-5 books you recommend to people on a regular basis when they're like, give me your favorite books ever?
Okay. Yes, I do read a lot. I'm definitely a bookworm. I have like some over here. Boom. I'm back here. They're everywhere.
Just a couple.
Yeah, a couple. And it's funny that in Ronnie's interview, she mentioned the Celestine prophecy. Did I say that right?
Yeah, and so have a couple others.
Whoa, hello. Just got this book.
Whoa, that's like a recurring theme. Nice.
It's sitting here. It's on the to-do list, but I haven't read it yet.
You're in for a treat.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about it. My favorite books, number one, the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. That one was definitely a game changer for me. Totally changed my life in a lot of ways. Number two is a book called Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse.
Oh, yeah.
Really good one. I really enjoyed that. The Giver by Lois Lowry. I read that one when I was a kid, and that one always stuck with me quite a bit.
Oh, that's a really good one.
Yeah, terrific. And yeah, I don't know. I guess this is like way more than 5 books, but Harry Potter, the whole Harry Potter series. You know,
Harry Potter was pretty good.
Yeah.
What? No Lord of the Rings? Gosh, your priorities are all mixed up.
Sure, Lord of the Rings is cool, but Harry Potter for me, all day.
You're just not nerdy enough.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
It's okay. No, that's cool. Harry Potter is a good one. We're big fans of Harry Potter too. Okay, so emotionally, like, how do you integrate your emotions to be your authentic self? Like when you're in the throes of just like really strong emotions, how do you stay authentic?
Yeah, that question. My first instinct is to say, I don't know if I do that. I am a Scorpio, and I definitely fit the bill of like being pretty emotionally intense at times. I think an important thing that I do every morning when I wake up, even before I get out of bed, I do like visualization practices, and part of it is reminding myself of the kind of person that I'm trying to be and what I'm trying to create myself as. And I try to hold pretty steadfastly to that as much as I can, as often as I can. So if something happens that triggers really strong emotions, usually I will try to remember that in the heat of the moment. Just take a breath and just try to go back to that vision and control my emotions enough that I understand I actually don't want to, do a knee-jerk reaction and be a jerk to somebody and say something I don't mean. So I'll try to just kind of like resolve the situation as much as I can, calmly and rationally and all of that stuff. And then I'll take some time as soon as I can to be alone, and then just let the emotions kind of wash over me and really feel them, and spend time with them and try to figure out what I can do to let the ones go that don't belong or that don't benefit any part of the situation. Usually that does the trick. Sometimes it takes a little longer than in some other situations, but yeah.
That makes sense. That's kind of what I do too. You have to let them be, but sometimes it just takes time. And if I try to cut it short before it's done expressing itself, it's no good. I'm just repressing. So it's like, all right, I'm upset about this until I'm not upset, and I'll do whatever I can to put myself in a better mood and sort through it. But sometimes it just has to be. And sometimes it's that pain or anger that will dig something up for me that I maybe was avoiding, or that it's like, okay, this is what's really going on, and yes, I'm really upset about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe like in the last year or two that I've been working on more is actually like talking to people about stuff, because I never used to do that, and I would just keep it all inside myself, and I realized that was real unhealthy and wasn't an effective way to solve the problems. So I definitely do still spend time alone first. I don't know if I would label myself as an introvert, because I can be a social guy and I can be a stage performer and stuff. But I do need some amount of time in solitude to recharge and recenter and all that stuff. And that's always, almost always my go-to when I'm feeling negative emotions pretty strongly. But now, once I start to process that myself, I also will try to talk about it with trusted people. And that has made some really good changes as well. And sometimes some stuff turns into a really good song, and that helps a lot too. So.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I like that. So do you think you're an ambivert then, or whatever they call it?
I guess so. Yeah, I can walk the line.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. How do you connect with other people? Like, how do you bond with them?
I mean, I don't know. I'm a pretty open guy. I think it starts with trying to find commonalities. You relate on a past experience you've had that's similar, or you find common interests or stuff. And I think that goes a long way to help people let their walls down a little bit and kind of open it up and stuff, and feel that they can trust you or whatever. Usually I'll try to make sure that I'm very open, even if a person is guarded or seems hesitant or nervous or whatever. I'll try to take the first step and be the one to be open in a situation like that, because then it kind of shows them like, okay, maybe I can do this too. This is okay. This guy's not a freak or a weirdo, or he's not going to judge me or talk crap about me if I talk about this or whatever. Yeah, it usually helps.
You're like making them feel safe, letting them know it's okay by kind of like setting the tone and the energy.
Yes, to everyone in this group, I am a very safe person.
Nice. And like Ronnie, you're a cone of silence with secrets then?
Yeah, I can keep a secret.
Was that a hesitation there? No.
No, not at all.
Just kidding. Okay. What are you really passionate about? Like what drives you, would you say?
Art in all its forms is a big one for sure. I think that's a really beautiful and powerful way to express things. What I'm really passionate about, what really drives me, is being there for people who are going through a tough time or who are suffering or whatever, are down on themselves. When I was younger, I think I really needed someone and didn't always have that. So I want to make sure that in as much as I'm able to, other people don't have to go through that if I can be available for them. That's what really drives me the most. I saw something that said, be who you needed when you were younger, and that's always stuck with me. So
that's powerful.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that too, because I think for a lot of people, as soon as they feel there's drama or pain or a train wreck or something bad going on, it's like, oh, they kind of tend to, sorry, you're going through that. I'm going over here now. And there are very few people that can just sit there with you in the pain, that don't feel the need to cheer you up or distract you, that can be like, man, that hurts, and I'm right here, or walk through hell with you. It's like very, very few people can do that.
It's almost reflexive for me, or it's like this uncontrollable urge in a way, like, it's okay, you're not alone. I've been there, and there's always a way to get through it, even if it seems insurmountable or impossible in the heat of the moment.
Exactly. And I always tell people, like, I don't care how dark it is, like, I'm not going to turn away. Okay, you're not going to scare me away. I'll be here even if it all falls apart, because I know what it means, like, to be all messy and falling apart, and I'm okay with it. You don't have to be anything, just be whatever you're being right now, and that's cool.
Yeah, I think that's a really beautiful thing. I think that society is always on this trip of like, everyone has to be perfect and happy, and they're always happy. They always live this glorious life. And it's like, when you get down to it, like, most of the people I get to know, like, they're not perfect. I don't think I've met a perfect person. If I have, they didn't tell me. So
I mean, it's not always Instagram perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, no filter.
Yeah, I've gotten called on some of my posts because I started sharing some struggles a few years back, and people were like, that's just TMI. Why are you talking about that? And they would get really upset. And it's like, because that's real. Okay, if all I ever post is what I'm eating and all these wonderful, beautiful, picture perfect things happening, that's not really my life. My life is struggle too. And when I post my struggles, it was hard at first, but other people come forward like, oh my gosh, me too. Thank you for sharing that, and they didn't want to say anything for the same reason. It's like someone had to do it first, and I just feel like that's more real, because there's always light and dark. There's always yin and yang. It's like,
yeah, it's sort of like, and I forget what the concept is actually called, but the idea that, like, if somebody's dying on the side of the road, and someone is already helping them, that other people are significantly more likely to jump in. I feel like people are just looking for that opportunity or that outlet to know that, like, they're not going to be the one that has to step out and maybe risk looking like the crazy one or whatever you want to call it. They
Yeah.
just need an opportunity to connect and to know that, like, yeah, other people go through it too. So
It's funny how nervous people can be about things like that.
yeah.
So Sean, could you share like a story or an example of a time or time period where you were really struggling, okay, where it's really raw and real, and maybe you hit a wall, maybe it's a dark night of soul, and like kind of talk about that a bit, and then how you overcame it, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I've dealt with depression for a long time, for most of my life. Um, there were times when it was better and times when it was worse, and when I was coming out of high school, I had whatever at face value, sort of like this ideal life for someone my age. I was going to college and I had my way paid for me, grants and scholarships and all of that, and I had who I thought was my dream girl at the time, and she was a high school sweetheart and stuff. And I had this whole vision in my head, and it was like everything, all the ducks were in a row, and yeah, it was totally perfect. I had visions of having a family with this girl and growing old and all of that stuff, and didn't work out. We broke up, and at the time, again, it probably wasn't the healthiest thing, but she was helping me through a lot of the stuff that I had dealt with in the past. So I my whole world centered around that relationship, and a lot of the things that I was doing was to make her happy or whatever. So it was rough. It was many, many years. Felt like I had wasted. And I dropped out of school, and it was sort of like the straw that broke the camel's back, that kind of thing. I was trying to drink myself to death. I was drinking a lot. Wasn't talking to anyone. I was cutting people out of my life. People thought I was dead or didn't know, was going to a therapist, and the therapist wouldn't let me leave without a police escort. She thought I was going to try to hurt myself and stuff, which wasn't true, but the state I was in, it was hard to tell. And yeah, it was really miserable for a long time. I felt really alone. I felt like all of the people in my life who are supposed to be closest to me end up hurting me the most, except for my parents. I have wonderful parents. They're like angels. Yeah, I didn't know how to get through it. I didn't know how to value life. I didn't know what the purpose was of continuing, or getting up in the morning, and it all seemed pointless.
Can I ask you why, when you're going through that, why didn't you want to reach out to people? Was it because they just weren't there for you, or was it something like holding you back from talking to more people about what you were going through?
Well, first of all, some people were involved in the reason behind the breakup, and that was causing a lot of trust problems. I didn't really know who to trust. I was probably paranoid in ways at times, but also I didn't very much want or care to be alive, so I was trying to sever ties so people wouldn't worry about me or whatever, or, and some people did reach out, and they would kind of force me to get out of the house, and I hated it. I didn't want to do it. It was probably really good choice on their part, looking back. But yeah, how did I get through it? I really don't know. I did therapy for a little while. It's really helpful. The most important thing I had to do was learn how to love myself, and it was really difficult because I had done the exact opposite for a very long time. And I had to take baby steps, and I had to say fake things to myself inside of my mind that I didn't really feel like I was believing at the time. It was just repetition of words, and I just couldn't. The emotion wasn't even associated. I had to break away from the environment that I was in. I think sometimes people really have to do that, and you kind of have to start a new life in a way. That helped me a lot, finding people that are truly valuable and that I treasure a lot. That was really helpful. Eventually, after being forced in the beginning. Like I started to reconnect with people. Yeah, it was just a lot of self-work. It took a lot. I don't even know that I'm totally through it now, but I am in definitely the best condition that I've ever been in my life. And it was just me having to realize that I have as much value as anyone else.
That's pretty powerful. And it's sad to think of how many of us have to think of that or realize that, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned before when we were talking that you had done some Buddhist training or work, some retreats. Was this during that time period or after?
This was a couple of years before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I returned to later as well, but this was when I was just about to graduate from high school. I was 17, 18 at the time.
Okay. And you mentioned before you had an interest and you've studied Buddhism quite a bit, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Well, I'm glad you're still here with us.
I
really
am. Me too.
Depression is no joke. It just feels like this heavy thing you can't push off. And it's like people try to tell you there's a light at the end of the tunnel and the fog's so thick. You're like, where?
Yeah, yeah.
Like you
it's
just
rough.
can't see it, And I think a lot of people don't realize that there isn't such a thing as sucking it up when you're that thick under it. It's really hard to overcome it.
And not to exaggerate, because I've had happy moments in my life, and there's a lot of stuff that I have so much gratitude for. But yeah, at times it's like it sucks the life out of you.
Yeah, it does. Energetically on every level, from sleeping tons to like you just don't have it. It's like you lost the fire inside or something.
Yep.
You have this mental sense, at least for me anyway, like you should be caring about things, you should be excited about things, and you wonder why you aren't. And
yeah, exactly.
And then it's like this self-perpetuating cycle. You feel guilty, like, why am I feeling this way? And why don't I take any joy in this? And what's wrong with me? And it's like, it's really hard to come out of. Tell me about like your spirituality. Like, is there a label? Like, if someone asks you, what's your faith or your worldview, or like, how would you describe yourself?
Labels I don't like too much. Boxes are very limiting. I don't know. I'm a human. For the time being, I'm a human, and I'm just seeking and trying to learn and incorporate and grow. I was raised in a home where I guess my mother was Christian. My parents didn't really push religion onto us, but my mom did read from the Bible to us and stuff like that, and sometimes would sing like Christian songs and stuff. But there was no pressure about it. My dad was into Buddhism, and that's kind of part of how I got connected to that, among other things. So I've spent some time in Christian churches. There was value in that experience, but it's ultimately, I guess, not for me. Spent some time working with Buddhist monks from Thailand, and I had a teacher who was a monk for some time. He renounced it, became a layman, but he was still teaching, and that was sort of my original leg in. And that guy, I owe a lot to him. Really great guy. Some things I learned about really directly through working with plants. I don't really label myself. I'm Sean.
No, that makes sense. You mentioned plants. Can you elaborate on that a bit? What plants do you mean?
Specifically, the most important one for me was one called Salvia divinorum, which I used as a teenager and didn't have a strong understanding of what I was getting into, and had a very powerful out-of-body experience, out-of-reality experience, and that opened me up to a lot of things and has kind of changed the way that I look at the world ever since. So.
Would you say it was a positive experience then, or what?
In the long run, yes.
Okay.
It was pretty terrifying in the moment, and it was very uncomfortable and very humbling for sure. kind of gave me perspective, showed me my place in the universe a little bit better than maybe I was seeing at the time. So overall, it affected me positively, yes. Maybe just in the moment it was a little crazy.
Okay. Wow. Well, a lot of people have said that about plant medicines. They'll have these experiences that maybe were really hard, but maybe is showing them shadow work or different things, and it's really brutal at the time. And then as time goes by, they realize what it was and how much it helped or changed their perspective on things.
Served a purpose, yeah.
I think a lot of people talk about even just what you mentioned, it sounds like you were touching on, of realizing how big the universe is and how we're just this speck. We have so much anxiety and worry and stress about everything, and really in the big picture, you're just this speck.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of lonely and terrifying and yet freeing all at the same time.
Yeah. And it gives me a lot of appreciation for being in the world as it is now and being able to create meaning for myself and for other people, knowing that there's so much out there and it's so easy to feel meaningless when you understand the scope of it. Yeah.
So tell me, okay, so do you have any triggers? And also kind of, so in general, but then also, are there any like posts or things that trigger you in the group? And how do you deal with those?
How do I deal with them? I usually ignore them if they're posts in the group. I keep scrolling. It's the easiest thing. Things that trigger me, people with like superiority complexes, or people who assume that they have authority over others or reason to tell others what to do or how to behave or believe without really deserving that in any way, or having the kind of character or conduct to be fit for that kind of position in someone's life. That really bothers me a lot. With that comes the territory of like isms, whatever you call them. Homophobia was a big one for me. Racism obviously didn't really affect me too much directly, and I am heterosexual, so I didn't have to deal with that myself, but I have had a lot of gay friends and bisexual friends who were pretty traumatized by the way they were treated in some situations, and that really bothers me a lot. So that's a tough one for me to restrain myself emotionally on. But usually what I'll try to do is just stay away from it, and at least until I can calm myself to a point where I can talk rationally, however long that takes, maybe days or weeks sometimes.
Days or weeks. Oh, hey, that's honest. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear you, because if you try to react in the moment, at least for myself, I always regret it later. I have to wait till the storm has passed, or it's going to be
right. Yep.
Okay. So what do you like and dislike about moderating in the group, and what do you wish people really understood about behind the scenes with adminning?
Pretty much like all of it. It's really great. It's fulfilling for me. I wish that I had more time to do it than I do, but I just get in whatever I can. I've always wanted to contribute to something that's spreading awareness of spirituality and stuff like that. So it's been a great experience. Meeting a lot of great people around the world that I would never meet in any other way. That's really exciting. I guess I don't want to copy Ronnie's answer, but sometimes the member requests can be a little bit tedious. That's maybe the only part that I could say.
Yes. I think we can all agree on that one.
Yeah. Most of it, fantastic.
All right, cool. So is there something that, some of the members wanted to know, what draws you to respond to certain topics or posts in the group? And is it just purely interacting with others? Is it about learning? Do you like observing other people as they're kind of succeeding or failing or fighting or whatever? Like what is it that draws you in to certain things?
I do have a soft spot for stuff that's just like uplifting, that encourages people or gives people hope and stuff like that. My favorite thing to do is to get into threads where they're discussing topics that maybe I don't know a lot about, I really do like to learn. If I feel like I'm learning, then I'm going to probably be very interested. And yeah, I mean, just in general, I like to, a lot of the stuff that I do comment on, I think that I have a really good answer going into it. I'm like, I already know. And then like, I'll find out, 20, 50 comments later, there are all these other perspectives and things I hadn't considered. And like, yeah, okay, maybe I should do a little bit more thinking on this before I act like I know it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how many people respond, how the perspective just multiplies exponentially. And it's like, whoa, I never thought about it that way. It's really interesting to hear
Yeah, I'm
people's perspectives.
starting to think there are no questions with one answer.
For sure, yeah. Okay, is there anything that you did as a child, maybe you still do now in your life, where you just enjoy so much you lose track of time? I think I can guess, but
I don't want to go with the obvious answer. Yeah. Yeah, definitely music is one.
okay.
Sure.
I won.
Yeah. Good job. How did you know? You're so intuitive.
Wow, yes. I know, yeah. My third eye.
Video games as a kid. I'd still play video games once in a while. I don't really have as much time for it anymore. But swimming is a huge one. The beach is a very comforting place for me to be, or even just swimming pools or whatever. It's very easy for me to just spend hours out there. It's really comforting. I get wrapped up in my own mind, and then I open my eyes and the sun's going down,
Yeah.
I'm a fish.
What kind of video games? Are we talking console or PC? Like
a little of both. A little of both.
Oh, wow. Oh.
Yeah.
So you are a little nerdy then. Okay.
A little bit. Yeah, I have a little healthy dose of nerd.
That's right.
I was raised on console for sure, and found some stuff I like on PC, but probably more of a console guy overall, I guess.
Okay. Fair enough.
I love Nintendo. I'm a Nintendo fanboy for life. So
nice.
I don't own a Switch, and it's making me sad, and I really want one. Hopefully soon.
Aww.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah, I upgraded to Sony, and then after that I realized PCs were kind of where I was at because I don't know. But that's cool. Tell me about your thoughts. Okay, this is a really broad question, so whatever comes to mind, obviously. Tell me about your thoughts on happiness.
My thoughts on happiness. Very important. Very important to value that very highly. Happiness and joy for me are super, super important, and they're closely tied to love, which, as I had said, is probably, to me, the most important force and most powerful force in the universe. I think as far as happiness as we know it on Earth, it's important to understand that it's not realistic to expect to always be happy. Because if you do that, you set an unrealistic standard for yourself, and it can be even more crushing or difficult to deal with when you're not happy. But during moments of whatever, despair or sadness or anger or whatever negative emotion, I think it's important to remember how amazing it feels to be free of all that stuff and to really be in a state of joy. And to use that as motivation to work through the negative stuff so that you can get back to it, because who doesn't like to be happy?
Oh, I think that's a really interesting point you made about not expecting that you should be happy all the time. I know especially with a lot of spiritual communities, there's this underlying assumption a lot of times that if you are enlightened or ascended or whatever it is, that you're now going to be happy and no longer negative or low or triggered like you do. It's not realistic at all. It's not really being human.
Right. In my experience, as I started to become, and I'm not enlightened by any stretch of the imagination, but as I started to open up my mind a little more, it was kind of the opposite experience. It was like, wow, this is really heavy, and it's this crazy stuff. I don't know. In the beginning, I didn't really know how to cope with a lot of the stuff that I was experiencing. Happiness, real important.
So as far as happiness, is that something that's tied to certain things? Like, are you happy when things are going well, or is that something that you do or that you choose, or like, how do you get happy?
I think it has to be cultivated. I think it definitely has to be cultivated. I think it's a mistake to think that it's totally a circumstantial thing and that you should only be happy when your life is going smoothly, because there are wealthy, successful business people that are totally miserable. And some homeless people that I met have been the happiest people I've ever spoken to. So it's definitely not a circumstantially based thing, I don't think. I think it's easier maybe to be happy if you don't have a lot of things weighing down on you, but it does ultimately move from the inside out rather than the opposite, or that's how I see it anyways.
So on a really granular level then, if someone's having a lot of tough things going on or feeling down or whatever, how would you be happy in that moment when it feels like everything's going wrong? Like what does that look like on a really practical, nitty-gritty level?
That's a tough one. Yeah, I don't know. Having a helping hand is important, and something like that. Getting away from that stuff is important, and rediscovering what does make you happy. Trying to carry that back into that kind of situation. It just takes a lot of strength, I think, if you really want to choose to. And not all of us can do it. I can't always do it.
Sounds like you're saying now that you directly have to create your happiness. It's not something that happens because everything is a certain way. You're kind of constantly trying to choose it and look for things that will bring that state about for you, kind of, or
yeah, and that's also not to dismiss people who are in such bad situations that happiness seems like an impossibility for me to just say, oh yeah, just choose it.
Of course. Yeah, of course. Sometimes it's just, yeah, sometimes there isn't happy.
Right.
But I think it goes back to what you're saying. There's value in the sadness and the negativity and the darkness as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sometimes that's where the greatest growth and insights occur, honestly. At least for me, Absolutely. It has been, and many people that I know.
Yep, I agree. And I, from experience, feel the same way.
Okay, tell me about the last time that you couldn't stop smiling.
Right now. The last time I couldn't stop smiling was probably the last time I was around my band, or anytime I'm around them. We're five comedians, characters, whatever. So it's impossible for me to be in a bad mood around those guys. It's just always a good time.
Nice. That's awesome. It's good to have those connections.
Yeah, I love those guys. They're my brothers for sure.
Very cool. Well, especially since you guys work together a lot, I would hope so.
yeah, and one of them lives with me, so.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, can you give me an example or tell me about a time where you were just kind of shocking yourself, like, wow, I can't believe I'm doing this? And that's open-ended, so.
Well, yeah, I think one of the biggest wow moments for me in my life was playing at the Vans Warped Tour. I don't know if you have ever heard of it, but it was probably the biggest event musically I've ever done, and it was pretty surreal. And Wow. It was like I'm on this massive stage and sharing the same bill as some of the bands that I grew up looking up to and still enjoy listening to and still enjoy watching live and stuff like that. So I just got off stage and got to watch them. It was a really crazy experience. It was a lot of fun. On a more serious note, I guess I'm giving you two answers, but probably when I started to stand up for myself, I didn't do that for years and years. I had a lot of self-esteem problems growing up and stuff. When I started to actually in heated situations defend myself, that was almost an out-of-body experience for me. It was like, oh my gosh, this is really happening. And that became lesser over time as well. But right in the beginning, it was unimaginable in my mind. So to see myself doing it, and I was pretty much in the beginning just doing it because I couldn't contain it anymore. So it was a very weird experience, and I was shocking myself a lot in those moments.
Wow. Okay, I can relate to that.
If
you're not used to it and you're trying to learn it, it's like a foreign behavior. It's kind of like,
right.
Am I really doing this? Is that okay?
Right.
Yeah. Wow. I'm really glad. To kind of backtrack a tiny bit then, what would you say to people that maybe are struggling with depression and maybe feeling like, I don't know what to do? Like, is there something you could tell them?
I would say, first of all, it's okay to be depressed. I think there's a lot of stigma around that where people feel ashamed of it. I did for a very long time. It's still uncomfortable for me to talk about, but it's easier now. But yeah, it makes you feel like a freak or kind of like a an outsider in a way. So I would say, first of all, it's okay to be depressed. Happens to a lot of people. There is a way through it. I would say most importantly, which I learned the hard way, reach out to people and talk about it, and don't keep it inside of yourself. I think that's one of the most dangerous things you can do, and that exacerbates the problem a lot. And you can see tremendous sweeping changes really quickly if you have someone just to help you get perspective, or even just to get it out of you, to say things that, you know, some people, there are things they're afraid to talk about, and they hold it inside for years and years, and that's ugly feeling, and it's like it burns a hole in your stomach, you know.
Literally and figuratively, yeah.
Yeah, literally and figuratively, very true. And for me, it was like just being able to get some of that stuff out was like I felt 100 pounds lighter. And that was such an important step that I never ever wanted to do. And as soon as I started to do it, I kind of started to realize the importance of that, and that there are people who can be trusted and that do want to help you, and they're not coming from a place of judgment, and they won't just shove pills down your throat or whatever, that there's an actual problem that obviously needs to be addressed. Sometimes it might be hard to find people like that in your life. I don't know, you know, everyone has different circumstances, but if there's anyone you love or trust enough, like, just don't be afraid to open up. It's very, very important.
Oh, yeah, I would agree with that. That's so hard to do.
Yeah.
Especially when you mention the stigma. And I think a lot of people view it as weak or something wrong with you, and it definitely adds to not wanting to say anything, because it's like, oh, they're going to brand me with this forevermore.
Yeah, like, dude, go get medicated. Like,
yeah.
Like, dude, maybe you should just go see a professional about that, and
yeah, go talk to someone. Well, yeah. I already did, you know, I'm still depressed, you know, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that. We talk a lot in the group about, at least the culture and the vision is that we're improving ourselves, we're working ourselves through body, mind, and spirit, and then we want to go out and change the world, not just talk about it. So how do you feel that we as a community, kind of in a big way, can really change the world? And then where do you personally, individually fit into that? Like, how, is there something you feel called to do or impact, or is there a way that you're doing it yourself? If you could maybe talk on that kind of in closing.
Asking the tough questions.
I know, right? It's a hard one, but
I think just the best thing that I see about this group is that you have a very broad platform, and that we're drawing all these people in from all over the world by the thousands. And so we have a huge voice, and like you said, just talking about it is not the end game. You know, we want to inspire people to action. But a lot of people don't even know how to go about doing that, you know? So I think we have a terrific place to kind of provide like actual concrete steps towards doing that. And just introducing ideas to people and stuff, things that might be unheard of for them, really powerful. But then, yeah, taking that and inspiring people to act on those things. I think I'm really excited to see where it goes as far as like meeting up outside of, you know, just online or whatever. I don't really know, you know, I'm kind of just taking it all in stride and taking it one step at a time. I think we just need to identify what we do want to change. Obviously, a lot of us have a pretty good idea of that. And then just strive for the opposite, you know, come together, act in as big of ways as we can.
Is there anything that you personally feel called to, or that you feel like you're working on, you know? Or do you feel like you're still kind of in a phase of just working on yourself? Because I know it's always like this balance between you're working on yourself and then you go out and you work on yourself, and it's like there's an ebb and a flow, for me anyway.
Yeah, I am working on myself still every day. And not to sound like a broken record, but for me, a big part of it is using my art to connect people and to spread the message that I want to spread, which is also tied into a lot of, you know, be there for people who are suffering, try to lift as many people out as we can. And then those people in turn lift others out, and it becomes kind of a chain effect. So for me, it is a lot about using a voice, but I'm also not afraid to get my hands dirty if the occasion calls for it, you know?
No. So it sounds like art is kind of going to be a medium for you, music specifically, to have your voice, and that's a pretty powerful catalyst, because sometimes I can hear a piece of music or a song and it will either have me, I'm either like feeling the primal drive and I'm going to go out and knock out 5 more reps, or maybe I'm just crying and these things that I needed to come out need to come out, or a really, really beautiful piece of music or art put together that just, it's just such a powerful catalyst. So it sounds like maybe that's something you personally are doing and are going to do.
Yeah, and I think a lot of music, modern music, or mainstream popular music, whatever, is kind of lacking substance in a lot of ways, you know. So I'm kind of trying to go into the opposite direction and talk about bigger topics with what I'm doing. I don't like to sing about like party and get women and whatever.
I love you forever.
Yeah, all that stuff. Maybe a couple love songs, whatever. But you know, I've written songs about spirituality and stuff. I've written songs about struggles with suicide or suicidal ideations and stuff like that. Songs about money and how it can corrupt a person or can change a person. So yeah, trying to put a little more substance into it and actually talk about things that, you know, I noticed that there's so many people in the world that like have this feeling like, what's going on? Why are all these things happening? Something has gone askew, and we can't quite identify what it was where it started. There are a lot of things that a lot of us don't like about the world that we live in right now, and it's really important to be unafraid to address that, because that's the only way to begin to affect changes, to say that there is a problem in the first place, you know.
Oh, I agree with you. That takes a lot of bravery. It's really hard sometimes, especially if you're speaking a truth that you know is going to cause an emotional reaction in people around you.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It's like, all right, you know, but finding that meaning and that purpose helps sometimes in the moment of realizing what's worse, saying it and dealing with this fallout, or not speaking my truth. Like you said, even things like that can eat away at you from the inside. So you're not really being your authentic self anymore.
Yeah, and I think some people are even afraid to speak about certain things because they don't want to say too much and end up in a bad situation, you know, as a result of that.
Definitely.
For me, I don't think I'm really afraid of dying or death. So that's not really a barrier for me. So I'm just going to say what I have to say, you know what I mean?
Interesting. Yeah. No, that's interesting that you say that. I think a lot of people would fear death.
Yeah.
They say they don't, but then if you talk to them right after they almost died, they're so shaken by it that, okay, you said you weren't afraid of death, but now you're shaken to your very core. Apparently you were, you know. People ask me about it, like, well, I'll tell you when I get there. I'm not close to it yet, but when it touches me, I'll let you know.
Yeah. And like, I'm not trying to die today or tomorrow. I feel like I have some unfinished business here, and some things that I want to do before I go. I don't like to lose other people. Obviously, being left behind is a painful thing. But because of what I have experienced and my own beliefs, I think that there's beauty on the other side.
Yeah. So you think there's life after death, basically?
Yeah. I think that death is a lie that's instilled in us at a very young age. Obviously, the body decays and changes and things like that, but the concept of death, as most of us understand it, I believe, is just a very convenient lie.
Interesting. All right. Well, we got to wrap it up now, but thank you very much. And is there anything else that you want to say to the community or before we go?
I don't know. I'm not shy. Come get to know me.
All right, cool. Should people send you a friend request, or do they need to chat with you first? Or
yeah, no, it's all good. Send me a friend request. But if you do, then hopefully you'll actually talk to me afterwards, because if somebody is my friend and doesn't talk to me for some period of time, I'm likely to take you off. So.
Take you off, yeah. Okay, fair enough. It sounds reasonable. Well, I really appreciate everything that you've done, and I look forward to you sharing more of your craft with the group. Hint, hint.
Definitely. Yes, that'll definitely
maybe some poetry.
A lot yet to come. Yeah, for sure.
And thank you for all the times you've jumped in and just been honest and really helped bring a healing energy to a lot of tense situations. And yeah, just thank you for everything.
Oh, not a problem. I do what I can. You guys are bringing a lot of healing energy into my life too. So
All right. Take care.
we're
We'll
all
see you in the group.
okay.
All right.
See you.
Bye, Sean.